Hi there, I'm Lucas Martell. I'm the creator of Walkabout.
I'm Don Carson. I'm the senior art director here at Walkabout.
Yeah, so today we're going to give you a little tour of the new Holiday Hideaway course. So we can start off here with, I think, my favorite part of the whole course, hits you right at hole one. Don, I think this was your idea, but we realized that this was the opportunity to make the board game version of Walkabout Mini Golf. It just seemed like the perfect way to introduce one of the other big things that we're playing with on this course. In addition to it being the holiday Christmas theme, but also the fact that you are miniature. Don, do you maybe want to talk a little bit about that and sort of like where that combination came from?
Yeah, many of our courses just sort of are whatever the team wants us to work on. But in this particular case, we have a list of player requests, and one of them which was the holiday theme. But they also wanted to be small at some point, a giant room with little versions of themselves playing it. We thought this would be the perfect marriage of both the desired holiday course as well as that idea of being tiny. And as one little feature, when you're in God mode, you're actually human height. So in God mode, you are the correct height for this room, but while you're playing it, you're about the size of a toy.
Yeah, and that I'll kind of keep wandering through here as we go. But yeah, that I think the miniature thing was something that we had been playing with for a little while, and I think that one of the things that we found was that you really needed lots of normal-sized objects around you in order for it to really sort of like to land and you to sort of feel that scale. If you were in a more natural environment, you just didn't quite. Don, you're about to get hit by the train. Watch out. We can hold for train.
Hold the train.
But yes, and then we were thinking about this course. I think that one of the other big advantages that we got was that it let us play with scale even more, because the Christmas tree and just all of the Christmas decorations are all at different scales. So it let us play with some things that are a little too small for you and some things that are a little too big for you, and kind of let you really explore all of those, the decorations and all of the details in a way that, I think that this course just really, really excels at. Anything else that you can think of on that one, Don?
Yeah, we're also always trying to find what is our sort of take on it. And the reason we hadn't jumped on holidays initially was we felt as though there was lots of things we could do, but was there something that we could have our own spin on? And it wasn't until we had this idea of shrinking down to the size of a toy that this all came together and just sort of designed itself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like I was just talking about, with the size thing, in addition to sort of like wish lists that people have for just like places to go. I think that a lot of people, and I think even in our heads a little bit, when people were saying Christmas, I think a lot of people were thinking North Pole, Santa's workshop. And while I think that would be cool and interesting, in a way that almost felt like we've kind of done things like that before, whether it's like the Evil Lairs series, like it almost feel a bit more like an Evil Lair, but just not quite so evil, perhaps, if we were to do something like that. And I think that this just had such a nostalgia factor. And I also have to call out the music that Chris Raymond did for this one, which is to me, spot on with, if you listen to it, you can hear some melodies, but it also doesn't get in your head, and it's really sort of subtle and understated, and it just feels like someone is in the room with you, just sort of like playing on the piano, and it's not, it's very Christmassy, but it doesn't feel like you've been inside the shopping mall for 1 hour too many when you're the fifth time Jingle Bell Rock comes on or something.
Yeah, we really, really wanted to push on for that cozy sort of postcard version, Courier and Ives idea of the holidays, as opposed to necessarily a more commercial sort of TV commercial version of what we think of. And we tried to pack it with as many sort of nostalgic props and traditions as we possibly could.
Yeah. And actually, that's a good intro to this hole right here. That's a great intro to this hole right here, because that one of the first things that we did was we went around amongst the design team and then out to the wider team and just like, what are all of the things that you remember from childhood? And a lot of it was sort of like, okay, yes, setting out milk and cookies for Santa. And I think that everyone had different ideas of like, oh yeah, no, they go on the table, or no, that's the wrong way. They have to go on top of the hearth. Like, well, we didn't have a hearth. They had to go by the front door on a very specific table. So it was really interesting seeing from the wider team this sort of like everyone's idea of the correct way to do Christmas. We would have started this in January, I guess, of last year.
I think of last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
And you had actually started it right around Christmas. So as is typical, all of our courses take about a year to get all the way through the pipeline. We just have 7 or 8 going at any given time.
Yeah, so, we were working on this hot and heavy during the summer months. So
yeah, there was a very Christmas in July feel. At Mighty Coconut. But I would also flag too, and this is one of the reasons I'm so glad that you're here, Don, because I think that this was a course. Ironically, it seems to be the holiday courses where we figure out a take. In this case, it was you're small going up a normal sized Christmas tree. I'm realizing that Widow's Walkabout also had a very similar sort of thing where once we figured out what the angle was, you just sort of took it and ran with it, and you actually went further in Gravity Sketch with that design. I think you actually came to that initial design retreat that we did with it pretty much like, I mean, what you're seeing here was not actually too far off of what you had quickly sketched in, rougher, but all the pieces were there.
There's a napkin sketch that is pretty much this.
Yeah.
It just got tighter over the course of a year.
Yeah. And I think that we even got a little behind the scenes thing that we'll probably be dropping today or soon that actually shows even like kind of that comparison between the sketches that you did versus what actually the final thing is, and it is pretty much 1-to-1. So I feel like this is one that you nailed the design and the vibe of it from the get-go. So but yeah, I think probably one of the challenges of this course though was figuring out the layout, and it's actually a really complicated level because there are no walls, there's no sort of room that you're in, or there's no sort of like division of like, oh, this is this area of the course, this is that area of the course. It does all sort of flow together, and we kind of had to find a way to lay out these presents that looked good, but that also allowed you to walk on and play mini golf on top of. And I do think that was actually maybe one of the more challenging aspects of this particular course. Yeah.
Something else that we try to do is to create a space that then you're constantly rediscovering from different vantage points throughout the course of it. I think both Atlantis and Venice are perfect examples of pretty much in God view, you can see everything, but you're constantly weaving in and out and getting high and low and under the same environment, so it feels new all the time.
Yeah, this course definitely has that one in spades. It's just sort of like you really like, you can, I'll just say that the fox hunt for this one, I think is actually one of the most challenging just because there is so much in this. And it also let us do a whole lot of, just the sheer amount of things that you could name, of just like naming every single one of the ornaments, naming, all of the different elements to it. It is a really dense course, and just like all the things that we were able to pack in. So we are coming up here, I believe. Let me actually go and double check. I think we're on hole 7. Yes, we're on hole 7 right now, playing down into the Nutcracker. And so this is the point where we've now sort of made a complete circle of the present area beneath the tree. And now we start getting up into the actual tree. I also want to just call out Jeremy Wynn, who is our art producer. But he actually spent a good bit of time getting the actual tree itself. That was maybe one of the other little challenges of this particular course, was just it was at a scale that we weren't quite used to working at, where everything needs a little bit more detail. Normally, you would never see us do a tree with, like where you can actually see individual pine needles. But this course, you absolutely had to have that just because you were getting so close to everything. So, he did a great job figuring that out and finding something that worked with the style, but is also kind of unique for how we usually go about things.
There's also lots of Easter eggs. There's lots of ornaments that harken back to our other courses that are hidden in and around the tree.
Yeah, a lot of Easter eggs. We really kind of wanted to. It's almost sort of like the 12 Days of Walkabout a little bit. It definitely gave us an opportunity to revisit some old courses. You'll see several more of those pop up. We'll try to call it out as we get through. This has also been great too, because now that we have done, this will be, I believe, course number 30. Is that correct, Don?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've also built up a pretty good library of techniques and tools and just a whole lot of different stuff, so that we're also able to kind of grab things from previous courses. So like the ribbon actually lighting up with sort of like glitter and sparkles and everything is actually something that we were able to grab from Sweetopia. Just a lot of the different tools and tricks. It's been great to get to a point where we're sort of able to repurpose and reuse things to make the whole thing better, but not necessarily have to invent the entire thing, all of our processes from scratch every single time. It definitely gives us a good edge. One of the things that is very different in this particular course is that usually the day version is easy and night is hard. In this instance, we decided that it only made sense to swap that. So you actually play the easy course at night, which is sort of the night before Christmas while you're waiting for Santa. The cookies weren't eaten. And then when you come back for hard mode, it'll actually be Christmas morning, and you see all the cookies have been eaten. Some of the presents have been unwrapped. There's a little bit more just general chaos as the kids have woken up and wreaked havoc on the Christmas tree. This is, I think, another really good example of what we were talking about, and especially being miniatures, that there were so many different places that we wanted to visit. And I think that the Christmas kind of lets you do a medley of a whole lot of different things. So we're coming up to our gingerbread house. We've got some decorations on top of the windowsill, on top of the mantle, the presents beneath the Christmas tree. It just really opened up how many different places that we could cram in, and it didn't feel weird to have them all packed in right next to each other, which just worked so well for being small. Tad Catalano, maybe he's done a lot of woodworking or something, but he just did an amazing job of like doing this very rustic look to the whole cabin. I mean, you actually designed this cabin pretty accurately to what it is right now. But yeah, Tad especially kind of went through and just added all those little details. And again, I think there is something, especially when you go up into God mode, you're seeing things at a normal scale, but it also feels just so much more dense than you would normally see, because from God mode, it's a much smaller space than it would normally be. So you really get to see sort of it's still low poly, but it's almost sort of like 5x the amount of polys that you're seeing. So yeah, God View in particular on this course is just absolutely stunning.
The mom and dad sitting and watching the kids open presents.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the other things that I think you added pretty early on, Don, was this idea of setting it inside a cabin. And it just added to that rustic, the sort of almost kind of Hallmark Christmas card vibe a little bit, because we had a lot of conversations of like, oh, where should the living room be? And we realized that so many people had drastically different ideas, that in a way going more sort of, the Hallmark version of it, I think actually helped avoid some of those things. And it's like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense that this would be ultimately Holiday Hideaway as opposed to your specific living room, because everyone has such a different experience.
Yeah. It's really the aspirational Christmas we imagine having more than necessarily the one we actually experienced.
Yeah. This is another callback here, calling back to Coyote Valley with Turnip the sheep kind of munching, but in this case, because it's a gingerbread house, of course, Turnip is made out of marshmallows, and would that be licorice, I'm guessing?
Licorice, I'm thinking.
Yeah. So we are.
There was
Okay.
was definitely a short list of things that had to be included, like the German animated candle pyramid, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Here.
I forget the name of that, but Henning, one of our who did most of the gameplay design on this course, he had grown up with this, where the candles actually cause the warm air to rise, and it actually turns the fan at the top of that. Yeah, it's a very traditional German German thing. One of my other personal favorites, which I don't want to spoil, but I'm assuming that if people are watching this, they've probably already gotten a chance to see the course. The snow globe that we actually have on the mantle over here is actually seagull stacks. So there's a whole little copy of seagull stacks sitting inside the snow globe. If you want to, I wish there was a way that we could actually shake up the snow globe now that I think of it. But yeah, I'm trying to think of we pulled the whole team, and we're sort of asking, and I know we've got a couple of folks from different religions as well, so it was also called out. We do have a menorah over there on the opposite. I know there's a couple of other things from just folks on our team who are of different upbringings, so it was great to get a few little nods to that in there. And here we're coming up to another big one that is very much this was very much you, Don. So I'll let you kind of talk us through this one.
Yeah, our household had a really large sort of Black Forest carved cuckoo clock as part of the household. But ironically, never worked in my childhood. It wasn't until I was an adult that we got it working. But this is sort of an homage to that big old cuckoo clock in the cabin. And up we go.
Yeah, like I was talking about the layout just a little bit ago, this was definitely figuring out how to get people around, and making it feel somewhat natural, but also like giving you a very clear path to follow along. We actually kind of answer that with one of the little reveals that we have in Whole 18, but we also kind of went with the idea that, that there are kids here. They would be sort of setting up blocks and little paths, and maybe they've got like little Green Army Men figurines that are sort of placed around to sort of like, they're kind of creating the path and just playing. So that very playful vibe just worked really well for
and here we are up high, looking back at the room, always coming back to that large living room area.
So this is hole 13. Again, man, in when you're in God mode, just all the detail that's actually going into this clock is just really, really stunning. It looks fantastic when you're up close to it as well, but I feel like so much of this course really does even it's so cool to see like how that whole interconnected pathway works. Here we're coming up to another one of our little callbacks. The puffins from Ice Layer became quite popular, so we realized, you've got to put them on an ornament. So we decided that we'd let the puffins be the ones building the snowman. Once again, also a great opportunity. These are actually like twice the size that they were in the actual course, because that's what looks right for when you're in God mode. That's the size that ornament should be. And from a gameplay standpoint, this also let us do some callbacks to some other previous courses throughout the year. So your ball actually will turn to ice for the ice cube from Ice Layer for this particular hole. We don't do the whole freeze ray mechanic, but it's great to have some of those gameplay mechanic callbacks as well throughout here.
Worth mentioning Tony's beautiful, beautiful lighting.
Oh yes,
space.
Absolutely. Tony, our lighter, just the course looked great before, but once he got in and just added all the color, this course is just so heavily lighting dependent. Tony's work on this Tony Davidson really made this whole thing come to life. So I'm actually going to ride the little toy ski lift down to hole 15, I believe that is. And this is coming up to probably one of the things that I remember most from my childhood, which was we had these, both my mom and my grandma had these little ceramic villages that were kind of all over. We always had them on a table. This was another one that the location was discussed quite a bit. But in both of our households, they were always on top of, like on top of the fireplace or on top of the table. So you get into this whole sort of, kind of tiny ceramic miniature village that I also have to say, Don, you did I think I got to scratch your itch of that.
It did.
That Tudor sort of...
My Dickensian itch was scratched.
Yes. So Dickensian with a little, still a little dark humor. I still think that, did you model the mailman off of yourself?
No, but it does kind of look like me.
I just always thought that was Don the mailman, so.
Yeah. Or it's Nemo, who also has that same look.
Yep. But yeah, just again, kind of built for the lighting, for the, just lighting up all the little windows of these houses. It's so just so absolutely gorgeous. I will say that one of the things that we tried a couple different things with, I think that one of the challenges was just when you're up here, it's also in VR, it's almost a little unnerving just because you're not, you can look down and see that, it's just the rug, but you really get the sense of size. One of the things that we found that actually did the most was, if you notice, it's really subtle, but we just added some little dust particles in the air. We found that just the other side of the room was so far away, you almost lost all of your depth perception, and it created a really weird vibe. And we found that just adding a little bit of the dust particles in the air was necessary on this particular course, just to help your brain clue into seeing something at a different scale than you're used to, because your brain wants to force it to be a different size there. So the skaters are on hole 17, and then we're going to duck into the last Dickensian house here for hole number 18. So throughout the course, we've also placed a couple little hints about a larger thing. So we decided to go twas the night before Christmas, and actually reveal that a lot of the reason that you are the size that the way that you are, and the some of the little details that are happening are because you're actually about the size of a mouse. So we got to, I love what they did with the mice, just a little subtle animation, and the fox hunt, I will give away, kind of taps into, the mice sort of celebrating their own Christmas alongside the human celebration. So we had to do the big giant ribbon on the slice of cheese. Just felt like a very
Christmas
apropos cheese and kind of surprising ending for hole 18.